My name is Zaira. I am 36 years old. One night, I walked out of the fanciest birthday dinner I had ever been to in Las Vegas. I decided right then that I would never talk to my family again. We were at a restaurant called La Cirque inside the Bellagio Hotel. It was a private room, very fancy. There were 60 people, $10,000 worth of flowers, lots of champagne, and everyone was older than my kids. It was my adoptive father's 75th birthday. My daughter, Amara, who is 10, and my son, Cairo, who is 8, were stuck at a tiny side table. No one wanted to look at their plates. Their plates were completely empty. My adoptive mom had already told the chef, "No kids menu for the extra table." Then she raised her glass in front of everyone and said loudly, "Real son and real grandkids eat first. Her kids can wait for leftovers if they're lucky." My adoptive brother, Riven, smirked and added, "They should know their place in this family by now. Don't ruin Dad's birthday." Some people even laughed. My daughter's lip trembled and my son just stared at his empty plate like he had done something wrong. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I just stood up, picked up both my children and walked out. I walked past the chandeliers, past the fountain, past the slot machines that were ringing and flashing as if nothing had happened. 22 minutes later, the same people who had laughed would be screaming my name for a very different reason. If you have ever felt like you don't belong in your own family, think about it. When it happened, what happened and what did you do? Like, share and keep reading because I am about to tell you exactly what I did in those 22 minutes. I stepped out of the restaurant and the noise of the casino hit me like a wall. The slot machines were screaming, roulette wheels were spinning, people were laughing, all bouncing off the shiny marble floors. The air smelled like money and people wanting more money. I carried both kids, one on each hip. They felt heavier than usual because they hadn't eaten since the airplane that morning. The private elevator to the 42nd floor was waiting. The walls were gold, soft jazz music played, and everything was quiet in a way that costs extra money. As soon as the doors closed, Amara's head dropped against my shoulder. Cairo was already snoring. I could feel their ribs through their clothes and something inside me broke completely. I realized how hungry and tired they were and how nobody cared. Our hotel room door clicked shut behind us. I laid them on the king-sized bed in the second bedroom. I took off their dress shoes and covered them with the soft Bellagio robe because it was the softest thing I could find. They didn't wake up. I walked straight to the living room. My knees were shaking. I grabbed my black leather portfolio from the closet. It was the one I had carried with me on every family trip for the last 5 years. I started carrying it after I caught Riven going through my purse in a guest room back in Cleveland. I learned fast that anything important had to stay with me. I unzipped it on the coffee table and pulled out every single document I had signed for them since I was 22. Birth certificates, tax forms, loan guarantees, 529 college savings accounts. All of it. They made me sign everything. I sat on the sofa and opened my laptop. I looked at the clock. It was 9:24 p.m. exactly. 22 minutes. That was how long my children had sat staring at empty plates while 60 adults pretended not to see. I am 22 years old. That was how long I had let these people use me. I decided right then that they would get exactly 22 minutes of my life left. Not 1 second more. I started with the banking app. 2 college savings accounts. One for Colton, one for Brooklyn. I was the only owner and custodian from the day they were born. My family had never put a single dollar into them. I had poured in every bonus, every raise, every time I skipped a vacation to work overtime. I requested full withdrawal. The money would be in my checking account by morning. Penalties? I didn't care. Next, I went to the mortgage portal for the penthouse on the 55th floor of the same hotel we were sleeping in. Thorian had bought it 3 years ago to show off to his friends at the country club. My credit score was the only one high enough to co-sign the loan. I found the original agreement scanned in my cloud drive. I typed a short withdrawal letter, signed it, and sent it. The personal guarantee was gone the moment they received it. Finally, I canceled the monthly transfer I had set up for Riven after his divorce. $4,200 every month so he could keep his lakefront loft in Cleveland and take care of the kids. I clicked cancel and confirmed twice. Done. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They felt steady clean. The strip glittered 38 floors below, a river of red and gold lights that suddenly looked cheap. I thought about the black portfolio still open on the table. All those signatures I had given away like a fool. And then I realized something I should have known years ago. They never adopted me. They acquired me. And acquisitions can be liquidated. I stood up, walked to the bedroom and watched my real family sleep. Amar had kicked the robe off. Cairo was curled into a ball. I pulled the blanket higher over them and whispered the first promise I had ever made that I would really keep. No one will ever make you wait for scraps again. Then I set an alarm for exactly 9:46 p.m. exactly. 22 minutes starting now. I opened the black portfolio and found the adoption papers, yellowed at the edges, signed by Thorian and Marisol when I was 14. I remembered the courthouse hallway smelling like bleach, the social worker giving me a teddy bear, and Marisol saying, "From now on you call us Mom and Dad." That's the deal. 4 years later, I graduated high school early and got my first full-time job at an insurance company in Cleveland. My paycheck went into the joint account they opened for me that week. Marisol handed me 2 new 529 plan applications. "You're the responsible one," she said. "Put your money in these. It's for your little brother's kids." I signed as the account owner. They never added any money themselves. By 23, I moved into my own apartment. That same month, Riven's wife left and took half his savings. He showed up drunk at 2 a.m. crying about private school tuition. Marisol called me and said, "If you love us, you'll help." I made the payments. I kept doing it. Roofs, lawyer bills, trips, tuition, horses, hockey teams. Every time they said, "You're the only one who can." I always paid. I skipped my vacations, worked weekends, took red-eye flights, all for them. I told myself gratitude has no price. Blood doesn't matter. Love does. I told myself one day they would see me the same way they saw Riven and his kids. They never did. I kept every receipt, every bank statement, every canceled check. I built a secret spreadsheet I called taxes. Every year I added numbers. 40,000 here, 19,000 there, 50,000 for Riven's new car. Finally, it added up to $218,000. That was the price of the family I thought I had. I stared at the final number until it blurred. Then I closed the portfolio, slid it back into the safe and locked it. For the first time in 22 years, I wasn't going to add another line. The elevator doors slid open and I stepped out holding 2 plates of Wagyu ribeye steaks, still sizzling, the most expensive item on the menu at $160 each. I went straight to the chef and said, "2 of these right now for my children." He didn't argue. I carried them back into the private room like I was bringing evidence to court. The room went quiet. People stopped moving. Someone's champagne glass froze halfway to their lips. Marisol saw me first. Her face tightened. "Put those back," she said. "Children don't eat $160 steaks." Riven leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Yeah, Zaira," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Real son and real grandkids eat first. Her kids can wait for leftovers if they're lucky. They should know their place in this family by now. Don't ruin Dad's birthday." A couple of Thorian's golf buddies laughed. I didn't care. I set the plates down on the table in front of Amara and Cairo. "Here," I said softly. "Eat." My kids looked at me like I was a superhero. They didn't even wait to chew, they just started eating. Amar took a bite, Cairo another. Their faces lit up. I watched them eat and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Real happiness. My kids were finally being treated like they belonged, like they mattered. The adults around us didn't know what to do. Their mouths were open, their forks paused in midair. For once no one laughed at my children. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The plates told the story better than I ever could. For the first time in a very long time, I realized something very important. Family isn't just about blood. It's about care. It's about love. It's about showing up when people need you. And if someone doesn't see that, then maybe it's time to walk away. I looked down at my children. Amara's hair was falling into her face. Cairo had sauce on his cheek and they were both smiling. I knew then that nothing else mattered. I had taken back control of my life. I had taken back my kids' future. And I would never let anyone treat them like leftovers again. That night, as the lights of the strip glittered below, I made a promise to myself. I would protect my children. I would love them fiercely. I would make sure they were never hungry, never ignored, and never treated like they were less than anyone else. And that night, Zaira, the girl who had spent 22 years paying for a family that didn't care, became Zaira, the mother who would spend every day making sure her children knew they were worth everything. One woman actually lifted her phone. I didn't care. I ignored everyone else and walked straight to the small table where Amara and Cairo were sitting together. They looked nervous, like little mice in a big room. I carefully put the plates of food down in front of them. The smell of butter, rosemary, and cooked meat floated up, warm and soft like a blanket wrapping around us. Amara's eyes went wide and Cairo stared like he couldn't believe food was really there. I pulled out the chair between them and sat down. "Tell me what happened this afternoon," I said, staying calm, looking only at my kids. "From the very beginning." Amara swallowed hard and began. "When we got here, they told us we couldn't sit at the big table. It was only for real families. Grandma said we had to sit here and wait until everyone else was finished eating." Cairo added, his voice tiny, "They brought us water but no bread. Then Aunt Felina tried to give me a roll, but Grandma told her not to because we hadn't earned it yet." I felt like everyone in the room was looking at us, like every phone was pointing right at us. "Good. Let them record it. Let them see everything." I looked at the main table. 60 people were pretending like they weren't listening. Some looked embarrassed, some curious, some annoyed. I said slowly and clearly, "Let me make sure I understand this. You flew my children 3,000 miles, put us in a hotel, made them dress up in fancy clothes, and then told the kitchen not to feed them because they aren't real grandkids." Thorian cleared his throat. His face was red from wine and embarrassment. "Zaira, honey, it's my birthday," he said quietly. "It is," I said sharply, cutting him off. "And my children haven't eaten anything since breakfast on the plane because your wife thought starving them would teach them gratitude." Marisol opened her mouth, closed it and opened it again. "That's not true. I was teaching them manners," she said weakly. Riven rolled his eyes and muttered, "Jesus, always the victim." I turned to Amara. "Did Grandma tell you why your plates were empty?" She nodded. Tears started spilling down her cheeks. She said Colton and Brooklyn come first because they carry the family name. "We don't." A quiet murmur ran through the other tables. Someone whispered, "That's cold." I reached over and cut Cairo's steak into small, bite-sized pieces, then did the same for Amara. I carefully put the forks in their hands. "Eat," I said softly. "Enjoy every bite. You earned this." Then I stood up, smoothed my dress and looked straight at Marisol. "You just taught my kids the most important lesson they will ever learn. And it didn't cost me a single penny." Riven started to stand. "You're ungrateful." I didn't let him finish. I took Amara's hand, then Cairo's, and walked them out. We moved between the tables, past the sparkling crystal decorations, past the ice sculptures, past everyone who had laughed or looked away. Nobody tried to stop us. The last thing I heard before the door closed was Thorian muttering, "Let her go. She'll calm down." And Marisol snapped back, "She'll be begging to come back by morning." I didn't look back. The door clicked shut behind us and everything outside disappeared. The loud casino noises, the clinking glasses, the fake laughter. It all vanished. I pressed my back against the door and felt the vibration from the nightclub 38 floors below move through the wood and into my spine. Amara's hand was in my left, Cairo's in my right. Their fingers were freezing from being nervous all day. I walked them down the short hallway to the second bedroom. I turned the dimmer switch so the light glowed soft and golden, warm like the sun just before bedtime. I lifted each child onto their own big bed. Amara kicked off her shoes without me saying a word. Cairo loosened his tie and let it fall to the floor. There were little grease spots on Amara's dress from the butter and a smear of mashed potatoes on Cairo's sleeve. I didn't care. I pulled the thick blanket up to their necks and tucked it carefully around them just like I used to do when they were little toddlers. Almost immediately their faces relaxed. Full bellies and safety can make a child fall asleep faster than any medicine. I watched them for a few moments, feeling their small breaths rise and fall. They looked peaceful for the first time all day. Once they were sleeping deeply, I quietly got up and went back to the living room. I knelt in front of the safe hidden in the closet wall. My fingers trembled slightly as I punched in the code I had made the moment we checked into the hotel. First Amara's birthday, then Cairo's. Inside lay a small black USB drive no bigger than my thumb. It had no marks, no keychains, nothing to make it look special. I had bought this USB 10 years ago, after Riven promised to pay me back for a $5,000 bail I covered when he crashed his BMW into a mailbox. That night Marisol whispered to me, "Family doesn't keep score." That was the moment I started keeping score secretly, recording every little thing. I carried the drive to the marble desk that overlooked the lights of Las Vegas and plugged it in. An encrypted folder appeared on the screen. The password was the exact date and time my parents died, down to the very minute. I opened the master spreadsheet. Thousands of rows of numbers appeared, every transfer, every check, every Venmo labeled family help. Every little heart emoji meant nothing. I had added new entries over the years but had never let the total calculate. I was scared it would show that I had been foolish, that I had given too much. Tonight I decided I wouldn't hide the truth anymore. Tonight I stopped protecting anyone but myself. I scrolled to the bottom of the list, clicked the empty cell and typed a simple formula. Sum D2, D4921. I pressed enter. 21,841,267. The number blinked on the screen as if daring me to feel something. I felt everything all at once. All the overtime shifts I had worked instead of taking Amara to her first ballet recital, all the money I spent on vacations for other people, all the braces I had paid for, the engagement ring I never bought for myself because I had to help the other children in the family. I had given and given and given, and the number on the screen finally told the whole story. $218,000 plus compound growth plus hundreds of thousands more in personal debt. I leaned back in the leather chair and let the tears come. They were hot, silent, and surprisingly few. My shoulders shook once, then stilled. This crying wasn't sadness anymore. It was the sound of chains breaking, the sound of years of burden lifting. I looked toward the bedroom. Amara had rolled onto her stomach, one arm dangling off the edge of the bed. Cairo had buried himself deep under the blanket, and only a tuft of dark hair showed. They looked impossibly small in beds that cost more per night than most people make in a week. I whispered a promise aloud even though they were asleep. No one will ever make you wait for scraps again. Not while I'm alive. I wiped my face with my dress and took the deepest breath I had taken in 22 years. Then I opened 3 tabs on my laptop. First, the Vanguard 529 portal for the kids' savings accounts. Second, the mortgage portal for the Waldorf penthouse. Third, my Chase checking account. Everything I needed was ready. I placed my fingers on the trackpad and felt a heavy weight inside me click into place. Tonight ends the debt I never owed. Tonight starts the life they can't touch again. I looked one last time at my sleeping children under the Golden City lights and started typing. 9:46 p.m. The clock flipped to the exact minute I had been waiting for. First, Colton's 529 account. I was the only owner, contributor, and the only one who could take money out. I clicked full withdrawal. Non-qualified. Reason: change in family circumstances. Confirmed the balance. $187,312. Hit submit. The funds would be available in 1 or 2 business days. Taxes? I didn't care. Second, Brooklyn's 529 account. Same process. Same rights. $179,187 moved into my control in just 43 seconds. Third, the Waldorf penthouse. I opened the guarantee document I had signed 3 years ago and added a paragraph saying that I was immediately withdrawing my guarantee. I signed it electronically and sent it to the senior loan officer. Finally, my Chase bank account. I canceled the $4,200 monthly payment to Riven for rent assistance. Then I opened the property management portal for his lakefront loft in Cleveland. I withdrew support there too. From now on, market rent applied. Riven would notice immediately. For the first time in many years, I felt light. I wasn't responsible for other people's greed. I was free. I had protected my kids and now I could protect myself. I leaned back in the chair again and looked at the USB drive. All those years of record-keeping, of quietly keeping score, had led to this moment. I had worked hard, sacrificed, and now I had the power to make sure my children would never go hungry, never feel second class, never wait for scraps. Tonight everything changed. I thought about Amara and Cairo sleeping peacefully. Their faces soft in the golden light, their little hands tucked under the blankets. They had no idea what I had just done, but one day they would understand. I promised them a life where no one could ever hurt them like this again. I closed the laptop gently. The numbers, the documents, the bank accounts, the guarantees, they all told the story of a life finally under my control. No one could take it from me. No one could make me feel small again. I went back to the bedroom and sat in the chair beside them for a while. I watched their steady breathing and felt a calm that I hadn't felt in years. My kids were safe. My kids were full. My kids were loved. And that was all that mattered. For the first time in a long time I could breathe. The chains were gone. The debts, the favors, the expectations, they were all gone. I was free. And I knew one thing for sure. No one would ever make my children wait for scraps again. Not while I was still alive. I looked at the clock. It was 9:49 p.m. and 14 seconds. I had 3 things to do and they would make 3 people very angry. But it only took less than 4 minutes to do everything. First, I closed every tab on my computer. All of them. Nothing was left open. Then I thought about throwing things away, but there was nothing to throw. So I closed the laptop and shut it for good. The room became quiet, except for the soft glow of the city lights outside the window. The city looked like it was bleeding gold and orange through the curtains. And for the first time since I was 14 years old, nobody owned any part of me. I didn't have to listen to anyone. Nobody could boss me around. I walked slowly to the bedroom doorway and leaned against the frame. Amara had kicked the blanket halfway off the bed. Cairo was sprawled sideways, one foot sticking out, looking very peaceful. I stood there for a long moment just watching them sleep. I memorized every little thing about them, their sleepy faces, the way Amara's arm was tucked under her chin, the way Cairo's toes pointed out from under the covers. Finally I felt free. My real family, the one that truly loved me, was safe and I could be free too. I picked up my phone from the charger and turned on Do Not Disturb. Then I blocked every number I had memorized since I was a child. Thorian, Maricel, Riven, the family group chat, even Aunt Felina, just in case she tried to call me tomorrow to make peace. I had to make sure there was nothing left to drag me back into that world. Then I crawled onto the big bed between my kids. I was still in my dress shoes, which I had kicked off somewhere in the living room, but I didn't care. Amara rolled toward me and threw an arm across my waist. Cairo burrowed into my other side, snuggling without waking. I lay there in the dark, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the soft rhythm of their breathing. In that moment, it felt like the last chain holding me down had finally snapped. Tomorrow the people who had been cruel to me would wake up to screaming phone calls and frantic text messages. The penthouse they had lived in would be gone. College funds would disappear. Riven would have big problems paying rent. But tonight my children were safe. Nothing could hurt them anymore because nothing ever would. I closed my eyes and for the first time in 22 years, fell asleep without bracing for the next demand. The next morning, the first sunlight in Las Vegas sliced through the gap in the blackout curtains and landed across my face. I opened my eyes to Amara's hair in my mouth and Cairo's foot pressing against my ribs. For 3 full seconds I didn't remember where we were. Then I did and I smiled. My phone was face down on the nightstand, vibrating itself toward the edge. I reached over and flipped it over. 97 missed calls. 43 new texts. All from the same 4 numbers I had blocked last night. I didn't answer. I left it on silent. Room service arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, just like they promised. Pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, extra bacon and chocolate milk in glass bottles. The kids ate on the floor in their pajamas while cartoons played. I drank coffee and watched the city wake up 38 floors below. At 8:17 the first official domino fell. An email from Hawkins School showed up in my inbox. The subject line was bold red letters. Urgent. Outstanding balance. Colton in Brooklyn, last name the Lynn, had an amount due in full within 10 calendar days, or both students would be withdrawn immediately. There was no payment plan and no exceptions. The finance office had already tried to pull the money from the checking account I used for everything, but it came back insufficient. Of course it did. I had moved every dollar last night. I forwarded the email to the trash and kept sipping my coffee. I wasn't worried. I didn't need to be. At 8:34 my phone rang from an unknown Nevada number. I answered it on speaker while buttering Amara's second pancake. A polite but firm man introduced himself as the senior vice president of Jumbo Loan Servicing. He was calling about the Waldorf penthouse. He told me that the personal guarantee had been withdrawn effective immediately. A new qualified guarantor or full payoff was required within 90 days, or foreclosure proceedings would begin. He was very apologetic about the inconvenience. I said nothing. The kids didn't even look up from their cartoons. At 8:49 the landline phone rang. This phone was hardwired into the wall and only hotel staff usually used it. The front desk apologized and said a guest named Riven was causing a disturbance in the private elevator lobby and refusing to leave. Security had already escorted him out once at 7 a.m., and now he was back, yelling even louder. The operator asked if I wanted the police involved. I said, "Yes please. And thank you for your discretion." 2 minutes later I heard muffled shouting through the door, then the ding of the elevator, then silence. At 9:12 the landline rang again. This time Marisol somehow got through before the operator realized who she was. Her voice cracked between tears and anger. "Zaira, pick up the damn phone," she screamed. "Do you think you can destroy your father's legacy overnight? You think we won't sue you for every penny? You were nothing when we took you in. Nothing." I let her scream until the line clicked dead. The kids never noticed. At 9:27, a new number I didn't recognize lit up the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. It was Aunt Felina. She was the only person in that family who had ever slipped me a $100 bill for gas when Marisol wasn't looking, and the only one who texted happy birthday every year without fail. "I saw the videos," she said quietly. 3 different guests posted them last night. The whole room heard what your sister said to your babies. I stayed silent. "I just wired the last $20,000 I was saving for Marisol's 60th birthday cruise straight into your Venmo," she continued. "And I blocked her number. I'm done funding her cruelty. You take care of those kids and take care of yourself." She hung up before I could even say thank you. I put the phone down, walked to the window and pulled the curtains all the way open. The desert sun flooded the suite, turning everything gold. Amara ran over and pressed her syrupy hand to the glass. "Mommy, can we go see the fountain today?" she asked. I knelt down, wiped her sticky hand with a napkin and kissed the top of her head. "Baby, we can do whatever we want today," I said. And for the first time in my life I meant it. 10 months after that 75th birthday disaster, everything had finally settled into something quiet and unchangeable. Thorian and Marisol lost the Waldorf penthouse to foreclosure in early spring. The bank sold it for $2 million under the asking price. They poured every penny from the forced sale of the Shaker Heights house into the remaining mortgage gap and still came up short. Moving trucks took away the last of their furniture while neighbors pretended not to watch from behind curtains. Riven missed the final tuition deadline at Hawkins School. The school expelled Colton in Brooklyn the same week his landlord changed the locks on the Terminal Tower loft. 2 months later, Cuyahoga County Family Court gave temporary full custody to his ex-wife because he couldn't prove he had stable housing. He moved into a small studio above a bar in Ohio City and stopped answering the family group chat entirely. I filed the paperwork in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, the week we closed on our new 4-bedroom house in Baxter Village, just across the state line from Charlotte. Amara's new legal name became Amara Grace Carter. Cairo became Cairo James Carter. My name went back to the one my real mother had given me. The judge signed the order without blinking. It cost $400 in one afternoon. I accepted a director-level position at the FinTech headquarters in Uptown Charlotte 6 weeks after we left Vegas. The signing bonus alone replaced everything I had ever given away, and the salary was 42% higher than in Cleveland. We bought the house with 20% down, no co-signers, no favors, no strings attached. On the exact date Thorian turned 76, 9 people showed up to his birthday dinner at a chain steakhouse off I-71. No private room. No floral centerpieces. No champagne older than the grandchildren who were no longer invited. Just paper menus, plastic booster seats, and the low hum of Friday night families who had no idea who any of them were. Meanwhile, 2,000 miles south, our new kitchen smelled like vanilla cake and buttercream. Amara wore the sparkly birthday crown she had begged for at Target. Cairo was in charge of sprinkles and took the job seriously. We sang off-key, took 100 blurry photos and ate on real plates with real food that nobody had to earn. Amara licked the frosting off her thumb, looked up at me with those huge brown eyes, and said the sentence I will carry for the rest of my life. "Mommy, I never have to sit at the empty plate table again, right?" I knelt down so we were eye level, brushed a curl from her forehead, and answered the only way I could. "Never again, baby. From now on, you sit wherever you want with whoever loves you enough to make sure your plate is full first." That is the entire point of this story. You do not owe the people who hurt you a lifetime of payment just because they once fed you, clothed you, or called themselves family. Gratitude has an expiration date. The moment they use the past to hurt your future, the debt is over. Real family is the one that never makes you prove you belong. Real love never keeps score. Real belonging never comes with a price tag. If you are watching this and still shrinking yourself to fit at a table that leaves you hungry, it's time to stop. Close the accounts. Withdraw the guarantees. Change the locks. Change the names if you have to. Your children are watching how you teach them to be treated. Pick the table where everyone eats. Pick the family that chooses you back. We did. 10 months later, we have never been happier. We wake up in the morning, smell coffee brewing, and watch the sun rise through our own windows. Amara dances in the living room in her pajamas, twirling around with a spoon in her hand. Cairo climbs onto the couch, his favorite blanket draped over his shoulders like a superhero cape. I pour syrup over the pancakes while listening to them laugh and sing along with the cartoons. No one is yelling at us. No one is calling to demand money or loyalty we don't owe. Every dollar in the bank is ours. Every choice we make is ours. And most importantly, every hug, every smile, every "I love you" is ours. Nobody can take that away. I remember the nights I spent waiting for the next demand, the next call, the next threat. The nights I went to bed bracing for someone to make me feel small. Now those nights are gone forever. My children will never know that kind of fear. My children will never feel like they have to earn love. We have breakfast together, lunch together, dinner together, and sometimes just snacks in the middle of the night, laughing and talking about nothing at all. Our house smells like vanilla and chocolate, like clean sheets, like laughter. Amara leaves her socks everywhere. Cairo tracks crumbs across the kitchen floor, and I don't care. It's our mess, our home, our life. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about the people who tried to take everything from me. And I don't feel anger anymore. I feel calm. I feel free. I feel proud. Because I chose differently. I chose love, safety, and happiness over fear, debt, and control. And my children learn from that choice every single day. We go on trips, small and big. We walk to the fountain in the city, just like Amara asked, and watch the water dance in the sunlight. We build snowmen in the winter, splash in the pool in the summer, and read bedtime stories every night. Life isn't perfect, but it's ours, and it's wonderful. Sometimes at night, when I tuck them into bed, I think about how far we've come. 10 months ago, everything seemed impossible. But here we are, in a home we love, with lives we chose, with a family that truly cares. And every night as I watch them sleep, I feel the chain snap a little more until it's completely gone. And that is the truth I want everyone to hear. Real family is not about who fed you first or gave you a place to stay. Real family is about love, trust, safety, and joy. Real love does not keep score. Real belonging comes without conditions. And real happiness is choosing the people who choose you back. We did. And 10 months later, we have never been happier.